Nicole. I'm Cecilia, and I'm the Director of Sign Situations, and thank you for coming in for this interview.
Thank you, Cecilia, for having me in this last-minute interview. Really do appreciate it.
I'm excited to hear about your experience and why you're interested in our company. So, why don't you first tell me a little bit about your background?
All right. I am a CODA. I grew up with a deaf father. My mother is involved in the interpreting world. So I grew up with some basic knowledge of interpreting.
Okay.
That also helped support me into going into the program that ACC has provided for interpreting.
Okay.
So I had the basic skills for communication, and I've acquired interpreting skills through the program at ACC, which I should be graduating in December with a degree, an associate's degree in applied science.
All right. And I just want to let you know, as we go through the interview, I'll be making notes, so just be patient with me, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So, to this point, what experience do you have in the interpreting world?
I've had the hands-on experience of volunteering through the interpreting program, so different assignments or places that they've asked for students to go interpret at. I've provided interpreting services, but it's all been through volunteer. And then I did my internship with CBH, and I got some hands-on experience with real interpreting one-on-one, and I had a mentor through that program.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the different experiences you had, be it volunteering or through real life experience? What kind of scenarios were you interpreting for?
I've interpreted open meetings as general that are just given out to the open public and they offer, to enclosed doctor's appointments, one-on-one, and school settings too. It's been one other thing that I've interpreted in.
Okay. So, what Sign Situations themselves? Let's look at this company. What do you know about our company, and why are you interested in working for us?
I know that y'all provide video relay service and community service, and that's something I'm interested in because I would like to work in the community, but at the same time would like to also provide my services via video relay.
All right. I assume that you have read over the core values of our company, and after doing that, I would like you to look at the different core values we have, pick one that most resonates with you, and tell me why.
I would have to say that you're providing customer service for the deaf would be something I value because it is a business, and being able to not only provide effective communication between the deaf and the hearing, but to also have excellent customer service, or that service that we have in us to allow both the deaf and the hearing client to be comfortable with us is something that I feel needs to be there, because I don't want to be that machine that works there. I'm not saying I need to have a personal relationship with each person, but I want them to feel comfortable and know and understand that yes, I'm interpreting for you, and no, I'm not going to go out there, turn around, and put all your information out there. That I'm interpreting for you, and I respect you as a person.
Okay. So you bring up another question for me. As an interpreter, what do you think your 3 top priorities are?
To provide an effective communication between both the hearing and the deaf.
Okay.
To ensure that the information between both is understood, that no one walks away with any questions, so that both are heard. And to make sure that there's that comfort level that I am in the room, but they understand, both the deaf and the hearing client will understand that, yes, I'm in the room, and we have that equal respect of they trust that I will have this information and it won't be shared.
Okay, so confidentiality.
Correct.
All right. I'm going to go off in a little different area. And I've noticed that you've worked in retail. When I looked at your resume, you've worked for a variety of companies. And I would like to know what you learned in that situation that you feel that you can apply to your interpreting work with sign situations.
With any other companies, or just all with working in the different companies all together as one? What's one thing I've learned that I can apply?
Yes, when you're talking about retail, I know there's a lot of customer service involved, plus other areas, preparation, et cetera, et cetera. So when you look at all the companies you've worked for in your work history, is there anything that you got out of those jobs that you feel you can apply to interpreting?
Yes. Preparation. Being prepared, knowing what you're going into. When I was doing cake decorating in New York, I always had to be prepared, knew what I was going to do. That way, when I would get when I was ready to work that day, everything would come together perfectly and I'd have a good flow in that day. And patience.
Okay.
You have to be able to be patient because you do deal with some hostile people, especially in any retail. Deal with very angry people, and they may not be angry at you, but they may have had something go on during their day that just triggered them, and you just happen to be the straw that broke the camel's back. So you have to learn how to be patient and work through it and not against it.
Okay. So specifically, when you talk about preparation, I think that's a really good point. When you're going into an interpreting job, what would you do to prepare yourself for that job?
As soon as I get the information on what I will be interpreting for, I'll do just a little research. Even if I've experienced it myself, I'll take the knowledge. Like, for instance, an eye doctor's appointment.
Mm-hmm.
I've had many, so I know potential questions that can come up. But at the same time, there are other questions that I've never experienced myself. So I could go and do my research and figure out what are some potential questions that will be asked.
Okay.
At this eye doctor's appointment, and just do some background work. If I know the company that I'm going to, do a little research on them. Maybe they're an eye doctor specialized in a certain field for this, so be aware of the situation that I am going into.
Okay. Nice. And then you did talk about patience in retail. How does that apply to interpreting?
You're communicating for two people, and you're the bridge of the communication for both the deaf and hearing client. So the hearing person could have no experience or no knowledge of how to work with an interpreter, and they could just, doctor's appointments, they're go, 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 back to back. Sometimes they drag on, but you may run into deaf or hearing that just you feel like let's go, let's get this going. And to be able to still take in what they're saying and take the message correctly and deliver it into the appropriate language with that message, having that patience to gather all that information and allow that interpretation to process.
Okay, thank you. So I just had another question come to mind in that situation in regards to different communication styles. Where do you feel your strengths are? Do you feel they're more in transliterating and ASL? Which area of interpreting do you feel your strengths lie? With which communication system or language?
I'd say ASL. I try to stay more geared towards ASL. But I do have a question in regards to that. Do y'all work with deaf interpreters?
We do, yes.
Do? Okay. So I prefer to use ASL more than English or transliteration. But if I feel like there should be a deaf interpreter, I would like to have a deaf interpreter there because they have the background and the culture knowledge of deaf culture more than what I do. Even growing up as a coda, I do know the culture, but I don't know it firsthand. Not like a deaf person.
Okay.
Who has that experience and understands it firsthand and who could get to the grassroots of it all.
Okay. All right, give me a moment. I want to make sure I covered everything. All right. When I was looking over your resume that you sent me, I believe it was 2 days ago, and I appreciate you doing that. I noticed that in your objective you talked about utilizing your real life experiences into your future position. So, can you tell me about those experiences, number one, and then number two, how you will merge those experiences into your future career?
So, growing up, always interpreted for Dad.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be in the stores, so I'd have to interpret for him, which was just more of a on the surface. We had our family signs. I was able to joke, and as I got into the program, I was able to learn more of a academic form of interpreting,
Okay.
something more appropriate for interpreting. So with those two different experiences and growing up with just the casual interpreting for my dad at the store or when we go get the oil change, to being exposed to in school working and interpreting right there for someone who I absolutely didn't know, being able to identify their culture, their signing style, their body language and how they deliver a message, and being able to take that in and interpret it into a spoken language or even vice versa. I feel like the skills I've obtained while I was in college in the interpreting program, I'd be able to apply it into an everyday situation working with the company while interpreting.
All right. Thank you. So, at Sign Situations, we do both community interpreting and VRS work. Where does your interest lie in regards to those two types of work, and why?
I prefer to do more community work, only because I know it's needed.
Okay.
Not that VRS isn't needed, it is needed, but there's some people who are more want to sit in the office and sit there and interpret, which I wouldn't mind 3 times out of the week doing, just to provide that, especially during the holidays when people are trying to contact their families who are across the states. But within the area, I know that there's those last minute doctor's appointments that someone woke up not feeling really well, or those just any last minute thing that they need an interpreter for.
Okay.
I want to be able to be there when I can.
Okay. Thank you. All right, what I'd like to do now is give you a few interpreting situations, and I want to know how you would handle them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is related more to VRS interpreting. And let's assume that you're interpreting a call and you realize suddenly that that the call is over your head. You're not understanding the deaf client, and what would you do in this situation?
Out of curiosity, for your video relay services, do you have the option to have someone sit in with you?
Absolutely.
And do you have the option of calling someone else to come in when you start getting that beginning feelings of this may potentially be over my head and I may need help?
Absolutely, yes.
So if I get a call like that and I do start having this feeling of overwhelming, I would call for someone. Even if it's just to have someone in the room just to fall back for support, then I would take up on that opportunity and utilize that.
Okay. Okay, now this is more of a community interpreting question. Let's suppose you're in the doctor's office and the physician is addressing you and not the patient. And you see that the deaf person is getting frustrated. What do you do?
Now, is the doctor addressing me as a question towards me, or is addressing me just as a person because they want to address the interpreter because they know I'm going to turn around and provide this information for the deaf?
No, you're in the middle of interpreting. You're actually doing the interpreting, But instead of the doctor looking at the deaf person, the doctor's looking to you and talking to you. This is the situation. This is what we're going to do. As if the deaf person's not there. Tell him, tell her, that type of thing.
I would honestly just ask the doctor if they wouldn't mind involving the deaf person, that this is their appointment. This isn't for me and them. If they would talk directly to the deaf person.
Okay.
I'd explain that it's not necessary to have the one-on-one interaction with me.
Okay.
That I do listen to what is being said and interpret it, and that it's honestly between the deaf client and them.
All right. Thank you. The next situation. We're back to a VRS call.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the phone interpreting a VRS call, and you know that it is a scam call, and that the hearing person is definitely exploiting the deaf client. You personally are feeling very frustrated with the situation. How do you handle that?
Unfortunately, I know with the Code of Ethics, we're not supposed to bluntly tell them that they're being scammed over the phone.
Okay.
So I would continue interpreting as normal. Unfortunately, yes, I would feel bad, but I'm there to interpret the phone call, and I can't make that decision for the deaf person on whether or not they identify that the call is a scam or not. That's on them.
Okay. Is there anything you can do that remains within the Code of Ethics to give them clues that it is a scam call?
I would say the way I interpret,
Give me some examples.
Even then, I feel like that would be kind of pulling the deaf person's hand into a direction to say no, and forcing them to make a decision, or guiding them towards making a decision.
Okay, thank you. And then the last situation, let's say you're in the community and you're interpreting for an educational class. And your team has not showed up, so you're alone, and the deaf person starts yelling at you directly, criticizing you. How do you handle this situation?
I would ask the deaf client if they would like me to call on a different interpreter. And I'd give them the option of me just to stop interpreting completely, or just continue interpreting until another interpreter can come on and provide that services. That way I give the decision ultimately is in the deaf client's hand, rather than me being like, okay, he or she's talking down on me. I'm just done.
Okay. Give me 1 minute here. I'm looking at my notes. Tell me, and this is in regards to interpreting, tell me 2 of your strengths that you feel you carry with you and 2 areas of improvement or growth.
There's always room for growth. Just learning different cultures and variations and forms of sign. Just any words specifically. Like, I know there's Texas signs, and different states sign it differently. So, and I know through VRS you'd be exposed to that, because it's not just centralized and all the phone calls are just here in Texas. So I would say that would be one of my challenges is identifying different state signs and the way they sign. I think one of my strengths is that I'm very motivated to learn. Given the opportunity and the feedback, asked or not asked, any kind of feedback, even if it's a deaf person criticizing my work, somewhere in there there's still feedback and there's still a lesson that can be learned. So being able to take a bad situation and still take something out of it to improve myself or learn from it is still a reward in itself. Relaxing with my process time. Sometimes I do feel like...
Is that a growth or a strength?
That's a growth, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
My growth would be to understand that not all situations are going to be at a steady pace.
Okay.
I'm going to be easy. That I am going to run into those really super, ultra fast, unbelievable talkers, or the very slow talkers that I can sit there for 5 minutes, hear half the story, if not the whole story, and interpret it in 2 seconds.
Okay.
So, gauging the process time correctly.
Okay, and one more strength?
Um,
You said one was you're motivated to learn, and then...
Staying positive. And that can coincide with being motivated. As long as I stay positive in myself and don't think bad about every situation, because the more you think negative, more negative outcomes. As long as you think positive, you can have a positive outcome. Or think positive even in a bad situation.
Well, and I noticed in your response to being motivated, that piece came out also. We were able to look at negative situations and what could appear to be a negative situation. You seem to look at it as taking something from it for your own personal growth.
Correct.
When I read through your resume, I also noticed that you were involved on the board of the AID.
Correct.
What did you take away from that process? What did you learn about yourself, about the position?
So when I joined, or when I was elected as the VP for AID, it was during the revamp for AID.
Okay.
So we got the opportunity to rebuild the organization as a whole. And I was exposed to some of the, and rumors or no rumors, I don't exactly know. There was just a lack of communication. So when we revamped it, I was able to learn communication skills, what is needed versus what isn't needed within the community. Working together is something that I learned about myself, is that I can work together, and I am willing to work together. There's more of an effective outcome, especially within organizations, when everyone is willing to come together, learn from each other's mistakes, and provide different opportunities and different knowledge from each of our experiences.
Thank you. Okay, one moment. So I have 2 more questions. Let me go with this one first. What are you doing to continue to improve your skills?
So when I first started the program, we had videos, and of course we'd record ourselves interpreting the videos. Every now and then I like to go back to my old videos and re-record it, and then I compare and contrast. If I see something that appears in my newer videos that is a challenge for myself, I'll do a self-evaluation over it I'll figure out if it's an interpreting issue, if it's a self issue, if it's an anomalous issue out there. Um, just figure out where this issue is coming from and why it's a challenge for me, and figuring out how to work with it and make it a positive rather than just let it be a challenge for myself.
Okay. Nice. And then the last question I have is, what is your 5-year plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, and what is your plan to get there?
If I'm not hired due to any reasons today, my goal is to, in 5 years, be this interpreter that I've worked and I've practiced for. I will do volunteer work to improve skills, go out there, do workshops, get the knowledge, understandings, follow the ethics, immerse myself within the deaf community, still be out there learning. And if I am hired, I'll work with the company, still be out there learning, but being able to apply the skills I have. And in everyday situation, you're still learning and growing. It's not that now I'm done with school, I have my degree, I'm better than everyone. No, it's still a learning process, and language always changes. So within 5 years, I do see myself being an interpreter, providing the interpreting skills I have, but still growing and learning with the language.
Okay, thank you. At this point, do you have any questions for me?
Would it be possible, do y'all allow your employees to work both VRS and community?
Yes, with the company, that's one of the benefits, is that our employees do have the option of working both areas.
And is it one, could you have one as a full-time position and the other as a part-time and vice versa?
Well, what we like to do is be able to have interpreters that are willing to work on both sides and that can help to fill the gaps when needed. There's always, people have their preferences, be it community or VRS, but somebody that's flexible and can go both ways if a situation comes up, similar to you when you talked about community work, being there for that last minute call, because we know those do come in. As well as in VRS, we know there are days that are busier and we really need a lot of people in the center at that time. So for me, the perfect interpreter in that sense is the one that is willing to work both ways, pick their preference, but flexible enough to support sign situations when they need the support.
Okay. Now, do you have any requirements when it comes to deaf interpreters, as if it's an adolescent? Do you require for a deaf interpreter to be there at first or all the time? Or mental health issues, is it a requirement to have a deaf interpreter?
When we get requests for interpreters, and we get information about the client themselves, we will ask about if they've worked with deaf interpreters, if we feel this is a need, kind of do a bit of an evaluation on the communication skills. There are times that hearing interpreters have gone into the community and realized they needed a deaf interpreter, and we will work around that. But there's not a specific adolescent needs a deaf interpreter type situation.
I was just curious because
it's more of an individual situation.
Because I was just curious because with adolescents or younger adults, kids, they not all know.
Right, and sometimes it really depends on, like I said, we do have a database that we gather information, but it really also depends on the communication style of the client themselves.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think I've asked all my questions.
Okay, well again, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me here.
A great pleasure meeting you, and we will get back to you within the week.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
for this opportunity. I do hope I hear back from you.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.